When a racist cop pulls over a decorated black U.S. Army general, he expects another powerless victim. But with one call to the Pentagon, the officer's career implodes, live on camera. This is the explosive true story of justice served at the highest level. Who was this general? How did the system turn against its own? And why will this cop never badge up again? This story proves power shifts when we expose corruption. Was the general's calm defiance the most gripping part? Or the moment the cop realized he'd messed with the wrong man? Drop a comment. Smash like if you stand against abuse of power. Subscribe for real stories where justice wins. Share so no one misses this epic takedown. The system only changes when we demand it. The black Lexus glided through the tree-lined streets of Crestwood Heights, its tinted windows reflecting the golden glow of sunset. Behind the wheel sat a man whose erect posture and sharp gaze betrayed a lifetime of discipline, though his crisp polo shirt and khakis gave no hint of his true rank. He was a U.S. Army general, one of the youngest ever promoted to 2 stars, and tonight, he was simply driving home from visiting his sister. A patrol car, parked near the gated entrance of the neighborhood, flicked on its lights the moment the Lexus passed. The officer behind the wheel, mid-40s with a sun-reddened neck and a permanent sneer, had been running plates out of habit. Nothing in the system flagged the Lexus as suspicious, but the driver's skin color was enough. "This one doesn't belong here," he muttered to himself before pulling out. The general noticed the cruiser in his rearview mirror and exhaled slowly. Not frustration, not fear, just the weary recognition of a ritual he knew too well. His hands remained at 10 and 2 as he signaled and pulled over. The way he'd been taught decades ago in his first driver's ed class. The way he still taught his own nephews. The officer approached with deliberate slowness, one hand resting on his holster. His partner, a younger cop with darting eyes, hung back, already uncomfortable. "Evening, officer," the general said, his voice steady. The cop ignored the greeting. His flashlight beam swept the Lexus's interior, pausing on the general's face, then the modest gold watch on his wrist. "This your car?" "Yes." "You live around here?" "No, visiting family." The officer's lip curled. "Aha, license and registration." The general moved deliberately, announcing each action before reaching for his wallet. He knew the drill. Knew the unspoken rules, knew the officer's type, the kind who measured authority by how much fear he could instill. But this time the cop had picked the wrong man to intimidate. The general kept his movements slow and deliberate as he retrieved his license from his wallet. "My registration is in the glove compartment," he said evenly. "May I reach for it?" The officer's fingers twitched near his taser. "Just do it carefully." A tense silence stretched as the general opened the glove box. The younger cop shifted on his feet, his eyes flicking between his partner and the impeccably maintained Lexus interior. There were no air fresheners, no loose papers, just a military parking pass visible in the corner of the windshield. "Tech consultant," the officer snorted, reading the license before looking back up with open skepticism. "That's what you are." The general met his gaze, among other things. The officer's face darkened. He leaned in closer, his breath smelling of coffee and chewing tobacco. "See, here's what I think. I think a guy like you driving a car like this in a neighborhood like this, there's only a few ways that math adds up." The general didn't rise to the bait. He'd been through this dance in dozens of countries, with men far more dangerous than this small-town cop. "I'd be happy to explain the math to you," he said calmly, "after you tell me the reason for this stop." The officer's neck flushed red. "Step out of the vehicle." The general remained seated. "Am I being detained, officer?" "Get out of the goddamn car now." Spittle flew from the officer's lips as his hand went to his service weapon. The general noted the exact moment things turned. The younger cop's startled blink. The way the officer's fingers trembled near his holster, not from fear, but from the intoxicating rush of unchallenged authority about to be asserted. As the general unbuckled his seatbelt, he made sure to keep his hands visible. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice carrying just enough for the officer's body cam to pick up. The officer grabbed his arm the moment he stood. "Hands on the hood. Now." The general complied, spreading his fingers against the warm metal. He could feel the officer's aggressive pat down, the unnecessary force as hands jabbed at his ribs, his waistband. "You think you're smart?" The officer hissed in his ear. "With your fancy car and your fancy words." The general remained silent. He didn't need to speak. The security camera from a nearby mansion was undoubtedly recording everything. The military-grade GPS tracker in his car had already alerted his staff, and the Pentagon liaison was currently listening to every word through the still-active phone in his pocket. The officer spun him around. "You're coming down to the station. Resisting obstruction. We'll figure out the charges." The general finally smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "Before you do that," he said, nodding toward the road, "you might want to deal with that." Two black SUVs with government plates reached to a halt behind the patrol car, their doors flying open before the vehicles fully stopped. The officer barely had time to register the government plates before three men in dark suits emerged from the lead SUV. The tallest one, a broad-shouldered man with a Homeland Security badge clipped to his belt, approached with the controlled urgency of someone used to handling crises. His sharp eyes took in the scene. The general standing calmly by his car, the officer's hand still gripping his arm, the younger cop frozen in confusion. "Release him," the agent ordered, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. The officer's grip tightened reflexively. "And who the hell are you?" The agent didn't blink. "Special Agent Daniel Harper, Homeland Security Investigations." He flipped open his credentials, letting the badge catch the fading sunlight. "You are currently detaining a high-ranking Department of Defense official without probable cause. I suggest you reconsider your next words very carefully." A flicker of doubt crossed the officer's face, but his sneer returned quickly. "Bullshit. This guy's nobody." The general finally spoke, his tone eerily calm. "Officer, I tried to warn you." From the second SUV, a woman in a Navy uniform stepped out, her captain's insignia gleaming. She held a tablet that displayed the general's full military profile, his name, rank, and security clearance glowing on the screen. The officer's face went pale as he scanned the information. "Brigadier General, Joint Chiefs Liaison, Presidential Advisory Staff." The younger cop took an involuntary step back. "Sarge," we shold. "Shut up," the officer snapped, but his bravado was cracking. He turned back to the Homeland Security agent. "This is some kind of mistake. He was acting suspicious and—" "You stopped him for D-Luby," the Navy captain interrupted coldly. "Driving all black? And now you've interfered with a national security asset." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The officer's radio suddenly crackled to life, his precinct chief's voice, uncharacteristically frantic. "Unit 14, stand down immediately." "Repeat, stand down and return tow." Agent Harper reached out and smoothly plucked the radio from the officer's belt. "This is Homeland Security. Your officers are being detained for questioning. Send a supervisor to our downtown field office within the hour." The general finally moved, straightening his polo shirt with deliberate calm. He reached into his pocket and retrieved his phone, still connected to an open Pentagon line. "General Abrams," he said, "you can stand down the rapid response team. Situation is contained." The younger cop made a strangled noise. "Rapid response team." Agent Harper took the officer's cuffs from his belt with a humorless smile. "Funny how things turn, isn't it?" As the reality of the situation crashed down, the officer's knees actually buckled. He caught himself on the patrol car's hood, his breath coming in short gasps. The general watched dispassionately as the cuffs clicked shut. "Here's what's going to happen," the general said, his voice quiet, but carrying the full weight of his rank. "You're going to be processed. Your body cam footage will be reviewed. Every stop you've ever made will be audited." He leaned in slightly. "And when they find the others, the ones who didn't have the Pentagon on speed dial, You're going to wish you just handed me a warning and driven away." The Navy captain handed the tablet to Agent Harper. It now displayed a damning spreadsheet. Years of the officer's traffic stops, with demographic data that painted an unmistakable pattern. The general turned toward his car, then paused. "Oh, an officer?" He didn't look back. "You're fired." The handcuffs clicked shut with finality around the officer's wrists, the cold metal biting into his skin as Agent Harper tightened them one deliberate notch tighter than necessary. "You have the right to remain silent," Harper recited, his voice devoid of emotion. "But given the circumstances, I'd strongly suggest you exercise that right." The undercop stood frozen, his hands raised instinctively as another federal agent approached him. "I didn't know," he stammered, his voice cracking. "I was just following orders." The general watched the scene unfold with the same detached focus he used to assess battlefield situations. His phone buzzed in his pocket, the third call from the Pentagon in as many minutes. He silenced it with a swipe of his thumb, his attention fixed on the rapidly unfolding consequences of what should have been a routine traffic stop. Across the street, curtains twitched in the multi-million-dollar homes as wealthy residents peered through their windows. One particularly brazen homeowner had set up a smartphone on a tripod, recording the entire confrontation. The video was already uploaded to social media, the caption reading, "Racist cop just picked on the wrong black man." Agent Harper guided the officer toward one of the black SUVs. "Watch your head," he said mockingly as he ducked the former cop into the back seat. The officer's face had gone from red to ashen, his lips moving silently as if running through possible explanations that might save his career. None came to mind. The Navy captain approached the general, her tablet now displaying a live feed from the Pentagon Situation Room. "Sir, the secretary wants to know if you want this handled quietly or—" "Full transparency," the general interrupted. "Release the Bodycam footage. All of it." The captain nodded sharply. "The media's already picking it up, sir. CNN has the homeowner's video." The general allowed himself a small, humorless smile. "Good. Let the world see what happens when you underestimate someone based on the color of their skin." As the motorcade prepared to leave, the undercop suddenly lunged forward, tears streaming down his face. "General, please, I have a family. I was just—" The general turned slowly, his gaze like tempered steel. "How many others begged you for mercy, officer? How many fathers, sons, brothers did you harass who didn't have stars on their shoulders?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You don't get to cry now that it's your turn." The scene erupted into chaos as news vans arrived, their satellite dishes unfolding like mechanical flowers. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and through it all, the general maintained his perfect military bearing as he was escorted to a waiting vehicle. The video went viral within hours. By morning, it had been viewed over 20 million times. The hashtag General Racist Cop trended worldwide. News outlets dug into the officer's history, uncovering multiple complaints of racial profiling that had been buried by internal affairs. The Pentagon press conference was standing room only. The Secretary of Defense himself stood at the podium, flanked by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. "The United States military does not tolerate discrimination against its members," the Secretary declared, "and we will not tolerate it against any American citizen." Meanwhile, in a nondescript federal building, the officer sat in an interrogation room, his head in his hands. Across from him, two Justice Department attorneys laid out the charges: civil rights violations, falsifying police reports, and, most damning, evidence linking him to a department-wide pattern of racial profiling that had funneled seized assets into a slush fund. "You're looking at 15 years minimum," one attorney said casually, flipping through the file. "Unless, of course, you'd like to tell us about your captain's involvement in the forfeiture scheme." The officer's lawyer leaned over and whispered urgently in his client's ear. It was the first smart advice the former cop had received all week. "Take the deal." The general stood at attention in the Oval Office as the president pinned a new medal to his chest. "The Legion of Merit," the commander-in-chief announced. for exceptional conduct in the face of discrimination, and for bringing to light systemic injustices that undermine our nation's values. As the cameras flashed, the general's gaze never wavered. He wasn't thinking about the medal or the accolades or even the disgraced officer now facing prison time. He was thinking about all the others, the countless men and women who endured similar humiliations every day without the power to fight back. Outside the White House, a group of protesters had gathered, holding signs that read, "End qualified immunity and justice for all." The general made a point to walk over and shake each of their hands before getting into his car. His driver, a young corporal, glanced in the rearview mirror. "Where to, sir?" The general smiled for the first time in weeks. "Home. And step on it. I hear the police in this town are terrible." The Justice Department's investigation spread like wildfire through the police department. Within a month, 7 officers were indicted, including the disgraced officer's former captain. The department's civil asset forfeiture program was frozen pending federal review, and Bodycam footage from the past 5 years was subpoenaed. The general, however, wasn't satisfied with punitive measures alone. He sat across from the Attorney General in a closed-door meeting at the DOJ, a classified folder between them. "This wasn't just one bad cop," the general said, tapping the file. "This was a system that rewarded racial profiling. Your consent decree needs teeth." The Attorney General nodded. "We're mandating implicit bias training, but that's not enough." The general slid a second document across the table. A Pentagon-designed accountability protocol used for screening military police. Track every stop. Audit every search. And if an officer's suspicion consistently targets minorities, they don't get a promotion, they get a federal review. 3 months later, the reforms hit like a tsunami. All patrol cars were outfitted with real-time GPS tracking, logging every stop. Prosecutors now required written justification for any search request. A civilian oversight board, led by a retired judge, was granted subpoena power. The changes sparked backlash. The police union staged protests, claiming the measures handcuffed officers. But public opinion had shifted, especially after the leaked emails showed commanders joking about hunting season in minority neighborhoods. The general watched from the sidelines, avoiding the spotlight. He testified before Congress once, delivering a 9-word statement that went viral. "Accountability is a depression. The badge should mean something." 6 months later, the ripple effect. Other cities took notice. Chicago disbanded its controversial stop-and-frisk unit. Los Angeles appointed its first civil rights auditor. Even the FBI revised its use of force reporting standards. The disgraced officer, now serving 18 months in a white-collar prison, became a cautionary tale. His mugshot, flashed on news specials, was captioned with his own words from the Bodycam footage. "You're nobody." The general back at the Pentagon kept a single souvenir on his desk, the traffic ticket the officer had tried to issue him. It was never filed. 6. The lesson, 400 words. The general stood at his office window, watching dusk settle over the city. On the street below, a young black couple strolled hand in hand past a police cruiser, the officer inside giving them nothing more than a polite nod. Progress, however small. His aide cleared her throat from the doorway. "Sir, the Harvard Law Review wants your input on their policing reform issue." Forwarded to the DOJ team, he said without turning. "But they specifically requested..." "I'm not the story." The general finally turned, his uniform ribbons catching the fading light. "The story is what happens when people finally say enough." He reached into his drawer and pulled out a thick stack of letters, handwritten notes from strangers across the country. A single mother in Detroit, a college student in Texas, a retired school teacher in Mississippi. All sharing the same quiet truth. "Your fight gave me courage to demand better." The aide hesitated. "The media keeps calling you the general who toppled the system." The general almost smiled. "Systems don't topple. They adapt." He tapped the window glass. "That cop saw my skin, not my rank." Tomorrow, another officer might make the same mistake with a teacher, a nurse, or a kid. His voice hardened. But now they'll wonder, what if this one fights back? Outside, the streetlights flickered on, one by one, pushing back the dark.